you're with us, welcome to The Verdict. Mick, Cornett, and Kent Meyers. We're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. And today something very topical, but probably something the average person in Oklahoma City doesn't know all that much about.
Well, that's right. Solar energy. We're talking about a project called Solarize OKC. It's something that isn't just imaginary, isn't just an idea. It's something that's concrete and in place and to be functioning soon. We've got two people that are very intimately involved with it, Dr. Travis Roach, a longtime guest of this show, and T.O. Boman from the city of Oklahoma City. They're going to talk about solarizing Oklahoma City and what that can mean to the average citizen.
And it could save you some money. So we'll learn about that when we get back on
Keep the lights on.
Right now, 6 feet can feel like a long ways away. But from 6 feet, we can still smile at each other. From our doorways and our stairways, from opposite sides of the street and opposite sides of the country. Through fear and frustrations, we can remind each other that we are still here for each other. Because we can still smile at each other. And we're not going anywhere.
Military service ran in my blood, starting from my father, which joined the Navy, on the Chickasaw side, my uncle, which served in the United States Army. I'm Benjamin Espinosa, Chief Petty Officer, United States Navy, and I'm Chickasaw. I went to the Secretary of Defense's staff at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., which ultimately led to becoming a combat support technician for Naval Special Warfare, specifically SEAL Team 10. I think to be proud and to love your tribe, to love being Chickasaw, you also have to love being American. You also have to love everything that America stands for. Equality, perseverance, professionalism, and power. I want my family to know that their father is a good person, but also feels that he has an obligation to the country and to love this nation. Anything worth having is worth dying for. The military and the country owes me nothing. I owe it everything.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guests.
Well, as we indicated in the open, our guests today are Dr. Travis Roach and T.O. Boman. Let me tell you a little bit about Travis. Of course, you've seen him fairly recently in 3 other appearances here on The Verdict. He's an associate professor, but he's also chairperson of the economics department of UCO, University of Central Oklahoma. He obtained his PhD from Texas Tech University, and this, as I say, is his 4th appearance. He's going to be talking about the economics of solar. We also have T.O. Boman making his 1st appearance on The Verdict. We're really glad to have him. He is the program planner for Oklahoma City. He's been with the city of Oklahoma City for 10 years. He did his undergraduate work at UCO. And going to be talking about how the program works. And the program is entitled Solarize OKC. Welcome, gentlemen. Glad to have you.
Yeah, Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, you're talking about change, and so Oklahoma City's been getting its electricity in a very similar manner for over 100 years. What's changed, T.O.? Why does Oklahoma City need to start looking at a different way of sourcing its energy?
Well, you know, solar's not really a new technology so much as just the affordability of it is getting closer to us. And so as we started to see that writing on the wall, the city's been tracking, electrical permits that are pulled for rooftop solar. And since 2018, when we started tracking those, we've seen year-over-year increases. And so we know this activity is happening already. And so the Solarize OKC campaign wants to make sure people have all the information they need to make the right decision or to make an informed decision. So we took out some of the legwork ahead of time, and we did a competitive bidding process and found a selected installer that's trusted and from Oklahoma City. And so what we can do through this program is offer residents an opportunity to learn about solar, learn about how solar would work for them through a free evaluation. Anybody, a business, a nonprofit, a resident can sign up for a free evaluation of solar for their home. And then they can determine if they want to move forward or not. But solar is different because we expect electricity demand to increase. We know that we have climate projections by mid-century that we're going to see up to 28 more days of 100-degree weather. Right now we get about 9 of those. And so that's going to increase electricity demand, especially in those hot summer months when solar is readily available, or solar energy is readily available, that is. And so looking at those benefits, we think that there's a real chance that solar prices could increase as well. So we have the Winter Storm Uri that everyone was familiar with. I've lost power for 12 days, and we're all paying that back over the course of years. So securitization process there and the grid modernization rate case, these things are going to just incrementally increase our our electricity prices. So prices and demand going up at the same time, and the interest already being there in the permits being pulled, we think that this is a really good time to get this information to people. So how it's going to work: we're going to have town halls, we're going to have open houses, you're going to be able to attend virtual events if you'd like, to learn about Solar 101, how does it work, how does contracting work, what are the things I should look for when I'm assessing this for my home, and ultimately make that decision to invest or invest later.
Mm-hmm. And would it power everything that I'm currently using by traditional electricity manner? So
it's a great question, because a lot of times you want to size your system just below what your actual consumption is. And so the designers that we have through the selected solar installer, who was 820, they're going to be designing a system that's meeting your electric bill. So the first thing you do when you sign up and you're contacted by 820, they'll send you a request for upload your utility bill for a year. And then they know about what you're using, then you can size the system correctly to kind of match your demand or what makes the most sense for you.
And has there been battery enhancements and improvements in the last few years that have at some point we reached a tipping point where this makes more sense than it used to?
Batteries absolutely make more sense than they used to. So that's something that's been a really, really expensive prospect of developing that technology, and it's taken a lot of time to get there. We are right there. I mean, you're familiar probably with the Tesla Powerwalls and the very name brands that are out there. But the way that this program works, batteries are an option. So you can have it added as an adder, or you can just do solar grid tied with OG&E and use what's called net metering, where whatever you don't use, you can sell back to OG&E at a wholesale rate, and so they'll buy it back to you up to your 125% of your peak demand. So that's in the weeds a little bit, but it's also a reason that you want to size your system to your consumption.
Well, Travis, you have been on a number of times talking about economic issues, and I know one of the things you've been asked to become involved in is this project. Tell our viewers what you've been asked to do and what you found.
Sure. So I was originally brought into the project to help score the proposals that came in, to judge them based on the merits of their pricing, of the audiences they were reaching, and the equipment they were using, and their time to install. But really, I was drawn to this project because I think this is, kind of like T.O. mentioned, this is a liminal moment for us where we could really make some good investments right now that are good for our consumers, citizens, every person in our city for a long time. Inflation's kind of the big word in my world these days. The Federal Reserve has increased interest rates. We have concerns when we go to the grocery store. And then with OG&E bringing in a rate case and natural gas being 3 to 4 times more than it was just a few months ago, future electricity prices are certain, or at least present electricity prices have gone up. So this is a great hedge against future inflation. We can think 2 events have caused people's electricity bills to go up this month alone. What stands in the next 10, 15, 20 years, we're uncertain, of course, but this is one good way to lock in part of your electricity bill by having a fixed monthly payment for your solar panels and then free fuel because the sun keeps on shining and will power your house.
Let me follow up a little bit on what you said at the very beginning. You were asked to score the proposals. I presume that is an evaluation of each proposal that comes in, and without divulging any confidential information, I don't want that, about how many proposals did you get? did the city get?
So we had, it was the coalition received them, so the city's just a player in this. But we received two from probably the main two solar companies that are out there that can compete for these things in Oklahoma City area. So they're both based in Oklahoma City and provided proposals. The scoring committee got together and looked at these things based on our evaluation sheet. So we did consider things like price, considered things like warranty, the installer's experience, all of these types of prospects to try to get some of that, like I mentioned earlier, get some of that early legwork out of the way for residents so they can, they can still explore any other solar installer they'd like. I think they'd be hard pressed to meet the tiered pricing that comes with this program. That's a unique aspect of this program, in fact, is that the more people that sign up and the more the more kilowatts that are installed, the prices go down on tiers. So if we get to tier 8, we'll be looking at a 40% discount off of MSRP prices for what it would be. So that an MSRP would come in at about $3.75 a watt. So 40% off of that price could be our potential greatest savings, which would be pretty substantial when you stack a 26% federal tax credit on top of it. And the importance of this campaign happening this year is that federal tax credit begins to sunset at the end of this year. So it goes from 26 to 22% at the end of this year.
Let me ask a question. Don't know if you guys know the answer or not. But we see a lot of wind energy, especially in rural Oklahoma. So how do you weigh the benefits and the efficiency of wind generation versus solar energy in Oklahoma based on the fact that there's a lot of wind and there's a lot of sun?
I think wind is a great grid level solution, and that's one of those good programs that OG&E does actually offer, is having like a renewables only type pricing. And I think for the majority of consumers who sign up for this program, they'll still be purchasing electricity from OG&E parts of the year. And so that's still driving these wind resources, especially out in rural Oklahoma. But as far as a community level, you build it on top of your roof, this makes a lot of fiscal sense. It makes a lot of literal sense, because to get a wind turbine up, even the micro wind turbines that they have, you have to get up pretty high in the sky, and you might have neighbors who are getting a little annoyed with you.
We're just nervous.
Yeah, sure.
Another aspect of that between wind and solar is that, you mentioned the batteries earlier. So if you tie your system in with batteries, you can have the opportunity, if the grid were to go down, to be able to still power some of those critical functions of your home. Maybe keep the stuff frozen in your freezer and maybe not have to throw out all that meat. So that's another upside of having solar directly on your roof paired with, the wind purchase.
Let's get to a break. We're discussing solar energy and a specific program here in Oklahoma City with Travis Roach and T.O. Boman. We'll be back with another segment after this.
The Vet Hero office at the University of Central Oklahoma, it is a one-stop shop for veterans when they're trying to get their education.
I call it my encore job. I get to take care of veterans. We help them transition. I was that guy that transitioned after 24 years, and in the end, GI Bill is a benefit that those soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine earned. It was the thing that made us the greatest country in the world coming out of World War II, and it will continue to do the same thing for this future generation of service members.
OU Law has a history and heritage that are unparalleled. At the University of Oklahoma College of Law, we empower our students to pursue the career of their dreams. We have the highest U.S. News ranking ever achieved by an Oklahoma law school. We are the first law school in the country to launch a college-wide digital initiative. And this year, our competition teams rank number 2 in the nation. OU Law, generations of excellence, limitless possibilities.
Welcome back to The Verdict. We're learning about a program called Solarize OKC. Our guests are Travis Roach and T.O. Boman.
T.O., in the course of your initial remarks, you mentioned the number 820, 820. Tell us what that means.
So 820 is actually a clever name of a company that was selected to be our local installer. So they're based in Oklahoma City. They have electricians with tons of experience on working on solar and working on solar at different scales. So their name's based on the time that it takes the sun to reach the earth, 8 minutes and 20 seconds to reach here. So that's just a clever thing that they use to name their company, and they've been a great partner to work with. We look forward to working with them more.
And they are the contractor or business that was submitted a proposal that was selected as the best by the city of Oklahoma City.
Well, it wasn't selected by the city; it was selected by the Solarize OKC coalition, and so that
tell
was
us who's in that.
Okay. So there's tons of coalition members. There's OKC Beautiful, Fertile Ground Cooperative, the Association for Central Oklahoma Governments, Travis is on it. We've got several other community organizations like that are very focused. They're Oklahoma Renewable Energy Council, Oklahoma Solar Association. So we've got a lot of credibility and a lot of subject matter experts. Oklahoma Sustainability Network is also in there. They bring a lot of expertise to the table, not only in reaching people through outreach and through their social media and having this network of people that can spread the message, but they also bring some expertise to that decision that was made. And so they were able to review these proposals and come to a good decision that would be the best overall for Oklahoma City residents and businesses.
Are you running into headwinds with the traditional utility company? In other words, PSO in Tulsa, OG&E in Oklahoma City. Are they like on board for this? Or do they look at this as competition? What's the politics of all of that, Travis?
I love that question. The short answer is that they've played nice. So far, it seems that this is working well. And I think a lot of this is to the system design because 820 is doing a good job of not overbuilding these systems. That's probably the worst thing that could happen is that there were too many panels on a house and you were overproducing and you weren't able to capture that value that you had paid for. And so just by the feature of building an appropriately sized system, it's making a lot of sense because your electricity bill is built out into two parts. You have kind of this monthly fixed charge and your demand charge, which is based on your actual consumption. When you're selling back to the grid, that's chinking away at your demand charge, how much you're actually consuming. But there are some services that OG&E provides in keeping the transmission lines up and running, although we both had 2 weeks without, but that was a big storm. That's what the fixed charges go into. So I would say that so far, in my own experience, they've played nice with working with solar installations and people wanting to do this. And part of that, it really makes sense for OG&E because when solar is most productive is at the hottest time of day when it's hardest to get electricity from the power pool and at its most expensive rate. So every kilowatt they can sell to a home that didn't have to travel a great distance or didn't have to be bought the day before in the power pool, that actually helps them keep their costs down.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I can picture someone at home watching this and they're thinking, well, somebody approached me a few years ago. My neighbor has had this for 10 years or 5 years. How do I know now's the good time to do it? In other words, what if I go ahead and make this capital purchase and get involved in this program, and then a year from now or 5 years from now, there's some breakthrough and suddenly my unit is out of date? What's the exit strategy for getting rid of this one and getting a new one? Do you run it because this technology is improving? Is that a concern that people should have?
I don't think it is, because what we have through the competitive process is we've been able to get the best-in-class equipment for the lowest price that you can get. And so the process itself has helped vet some of this. The microinverters that are used, so that's what converts the power correct me here, yeah. DC to AC. Yep. And so but they're mounted on each panel, and these are the top of the line, in-phase, IQ8, that's all, gibberish right now, but what it means is it's the best inverter that's out there, and if one fails, you can go and replace that one as opposed to replacing the whole one, because it used to run like a Christmas light string used to. One went out, the whole thing went down. But now we have these micro inverters that allow just one to go out, and then you can go replace that individual one. So you would be hard-pressed, I think, to top the type of equipment that's offered through this program in the next 5 or 10 years. Technology is going to keep improving, but the investment today is like Travis said, it's going to be a hedge against inflation and against climate increasing the temperatures and your electricity bill.
I think I'd add to that just a little bit that we've been learning and we've been producing solar for a while now. There's been economists call it learning by doing. And so this is the 8th iteration. You know, it's like buying the 8th iteration of the iPhone versus the first iPhone. How much incrementally better is the iPhone 10 compared to the 8? Maybe a little bit. Maybe it has an extra camera or some kind of doodad you might not really need. We're at the phase where this is a mature technology. Now, I agree. If I had bought 5-10 years ago, I might be kind of going, oh, I wish I had this new inverter. I wish I had this new panel. I wish it hadn't cost me $8 or $9 per watt to put in. But really, we're at a point where prices have fallen just so precipitously that the majority of what you're paying for is the install cost. It's getting on the roof.
And, you know, I have some experience in dealing with this because when we were designing the new convention center, T.O.'s nodding as he remembers this conversation. Where, you know, convention center has a lot of roof. Do we want to put solar panels? And what we came down to when the engineers and the economists did the math is that our utility costs in Oklahoma City were so low, it was really hard to justify the additional capital expense. And of course, you know, it's a finite number of dollars we had to spend. And at the end of the day, it just wasn't the right decision at the time. Maybe if we were building a convention center 5 years from now, you know, there might be a different conclusion.
Yeah.
That's correct, and there are other projects coming online. We know that the MAPS 4 projects are just now hitting the street, or starting to, and so there's going to be ample opportunity to look at public projects. There's lease agreements that are available, power purchase agreements, these types of things where public lands could be used for solar generation to help kind of offset, like Dr. Roach said, the summer peak demand. So if we have a little bit of these feeding into the grid, that kind of helps quite a bit as well. But looking at the convention center, you know, the convention center is also a unique user too. It uses a lot of power, so it falls in a different tariff than we might fall into at home, and so that kind of produces you know, an even more difficult payback to climb over. But I think we are getting there in terms of electricity prices going up and the technology prices coming down.
Well, we're a relatively short show, although some of our viewers may not think so when they hear our questions. But we will be giving a website at the end of this show, and I presume that website will give our viewers a place to go if they have specific questions or need more information.
You're absolutely right, and I should have mentioned it already. SolarizeOKC.com is the place to go, and that's where you can sign up for a free evaluation. Again, residents, businesses, nonprofit that owns a building, you know, you can sign up for a free evaluation and just get your questions answered. You'll be connected to a representative from 820 who will reach out to you and develop a design, and so that's the place to go to get that. More information about this. We're going to have workshops, we're going to have town halls, open houses where you can go and get your hands on the panels and see what it looks like in 820's warehouse. That's going to be happening all the way through the campaign, which lasts through September 30th. So before September 30th is when you want to get signed up. The other thing about that tax credit I mentioned earlier is it's phasing out, but if your project is signed up and completed by the end of this calendar year, you get that full 26%. So you have a vested interest in being one of the first ones in line.
Well,
the website will give all the information about the meetings, the places to call for information, the lectures, and the like.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay.
Yeah. We got a little over a minute left. About how much are you going to save? And if you can't tell me exact, I think viewers know that they're not going to hold you to this. But if your electric bill is, say, for math purposes, we'll say $100. If I pay $100 a month, about how much could a consumer expect to save if they had this program implemented?
So there's a lot of moving parts there. So, but translating the $100, if that equates to consumption directly, it's going to depend on your roof availability. There's also structures where you can build a pergola or you can build a canopy over your driveway. So there's other places to put solar than just what roof space you have available. So if you have the space, you could offset all of your demand usage. You could offset $100 worth of it. Now you're still going to have a bill because of those fixed charges that Dr. Roach mentioned. So that's going to be the place where you can get as close to it. It's really going to depend on your roof space. If you have enough roof space to put the panels to match your consumption, you could get pretty close to it.
Dr. Roach, 30 seconds left.
Yeah, I had my own house looked at, and they kind of laughed at me because I keep my AC at 80 degrees in the summer. So I'm a curmudgeon, and I keep the thermostat up. But it was going to be about a 2 or 3 kilowatt system, and it was going to pay itself off in about 10 or 11 years. And these solar panels have about a 25-year lifespan. So after about year 10, I was going to be essentially making money on this project. Now, you don't have to keep your thermostat at 80 to be able to do that. It's just because I tend to keep it up and I have good, I'm a very energy efficient type, but it pays itself off, and even at our competitive prices in Oklahoma.
All right. And I should add one more thing.
Sure.
The 25 years he mentioned, that's typical, but this program, we've got a warranty for 30 years. So it's going to last 30 years based on the warranty.
We're going to have to end the show there. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming
Yeah,
on.
thanks.
Thank you
That's
so
a lot
much.
of good information.
I appreciate it.
We'll be right back.
It used to be okay in hospitals. It used to be okay in movie theaters. It was okay in classrooms, restaurants, and airplanes. But thanks to a greater understanding of the dangers, that's not okay anymore. So now that we know secondhand smoke causes lifelong health problems, why is it still okay to smoke with children in the car? Bottom line, it's not okay. Let's get serious about protecting kids. Join the fight at stopswithme.com.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
You have children coming from a different lifestyle, different mindset. You have to open your arms and really do what you have to do to have that child become a part of your family. And if it's more patience, that's what you do. Kids got to know they can trust you. And that's what we try to do with these kids.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Well, a lot of information in that show, and to the extent people want more information or they want to know how they could be a part of the program, they can go to a website, and it's solarizeokc.com, solarizeokc.com, and you can get what they said was a free evaluation that they would come out and talk to you about it and look at it. And he seemed to set a timetable there. There's some tax credits that are only going to be, at this point, only going to be useful this year. So, if you're interested, there's reason to take action now.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, T.O. and Dr. Roach are really good, and we really appreciate them coming.
Yeah, we really do. They gave us a lot of information in a short period of time.
We've got a website, theverdict.tv. Go there, and we'll see you next week with another edition of The Verdict. So long.